And welcome once again to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. Glad you're here. We're here every week. We meet interesting people and deal with topical issues. And today we bring in one of the newly elected state officials.
Well, before we get to that,
okay,
happy 10th anniversary.
Thank you very much. Our show has been going on
10 years ago this week. We started.
That is hard to believe.
Well, we started on April Fool's Day, which is pretty appropriate,
Yeah.
frankly. But yeah, 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's a lot of shows. And we've been doing it basically every week ever since.
Just almost every week ever since, yeah. 500 and some odd shows in 10 years.
And, there's people at home that have videotapes of every one of them still on their library.
Yeah, they're saving them. And we've got some extra if you need them.
They just saved the good ones, but so far they've kept them all. Our guest today, who has no idea, I guess he's part of this 10th anniversary show, does he?
Well, no, and if he hears this, he probably won't come
That's
on.
right, he'll turn around and leave.
He'll leave.
And this won't be one you'll keep, but it's the new state treasurer. So stay with us, you're watching The Verdict, and we'll be right back.
America has been here before, faced with daunting challenges, and we've always found the courage to lead. Foreign oil, greenhouse gases, we have the power to do something about them with American natural gas. Chesapeake is forging ahead, converting our fleets to clean-burning natural gas vehicles, encouraging others to do the same. Welcome to America. Chesapeake, America's champion of natural gas.
Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate in Oklahoma City and Tulsa.
Bow my head to pray. I know you hear each word I say. I'm pouring out my heart to you like water. I have faith, I have faith, I have faith in you.
And welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
Today we're really pleased to welcome the Honorable Kent Miller, the 18th State Treasurer of the state of Oklahoma, to join us. He did his undergraduate work at Lipscomb College in Tennessee, got his master's at Pepperdine University in California, and thankfully decided to come to Oklahoma and get his PhD in economics at the University of Oklahoma. He has a business background. He has been 6 years in the House of Representatives as a representative from northern, I guess the Edmond area.
Edmond, right.
He is an economics professor at Oklahoma Christian University, and just recently in the general election squeaked by with a mere 67% of the vote. Ken, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for
asking.
asking. It's good to be here. Thanks.
Well, it's been a few months now, but congratulations on that victory in November.
Well, thank you. We're having a good time and enjoying it. So
You've been in office long enough now to have an opinion on this issue. Did the campaign help prepare you for the office?
Oh, certainly. I think that the campaigns, one, they're a lot of fun. You get to travel the state. You get to meet a lot of new friends. And
yeah, but it's a big state, though.
It's a big state. I have a Ford with 172,000 miles on it. So it is a big state, and we got around to just about all of it.
I'm guessing, though, when the treasurer comes to town, you're thinking, you guys have got to stop spending so much money. Are they holding you accountable for how much money gets spent if you're the treasurer?
Well, a lot of folks are not real sure what the treasurer does. They knew it has something to do with money.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And want you to take care of it.
Yeah, and stop spending it.
That's right.
Yeah, and do they realize that really it's the legislature and the governor that have more to do with what choices are
Well,
being
I certainly
expended?
punt it that way, so I hope so. Yeah.
Now, and the investment side of it, though, is it, how do you explain that to the average citizen who's watching today and wants to know what the treasurer does?
Right.
How does that work?
You know, I think the best way to think of it is it's the state's chief financial officer. And in a lot of ways, it's the state's bank. We receive all the funds that come in, we hold them, we maximize them, and we distribute them as the legislature directs us to do.
Well, how is it going from the classroom to the town hall meeting?
Well, you know, the classroom is great, and I'm still doing it. In fact, this morning at 8 o'clock, I was in there with a bunch of sleepy-eyed college-age kids. But it's a great experience, both. But going from the classroom to the town hall, I had a little bit of a slow transition. I got a real small volunteer appointment with Governor Keating back in the late 90s. Yeah. And then things sort of progressed on, and I got involved a little bit more with state government, got to know my predecessor, Ray Vaughn, now the commissioner in Oklahoma County. And then he encouraged me to run for a seat. I did that, and then here we are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So how and when did you decide you were going to run for the state treasurer's office?
Well, one day I was sitting in my office, and I just got a phone call out of the blue, unexpected, from the current treasurer at the time, Scott Meacham, and he let me know that he was not going to run, and he wanted to.
So if someone else had answered the phone, would they have gotten the invitation to run, or was it specific to you?
I'd like to think it was me, Mick.
Okay.
I'd like to think it was me. But got the phone call, and so we started discussing it, and then started talking to my friends and family, and decided that that would be something that I was uniquely equipped to do. And I feel like with my background in economics and certainly in state budgeting, I spent 3 years as the budget chairman in the House, and that's really how I got to know Scott, was through our work working together in the state's finances. And I think that gave him confidence that I could handle the job, and he certainly knew the job pretty well. And so that's how I decided to run for state treasurer. Felt like my background prepared me, and got a lot of support to do that.
I'm guessing it'd be more fun to be the treasurer when there's a lot more money, because I know what we're hearing from the legislature this year is you know, we just underperformed on the revenue side, and it's tough. Does it really matter in the treasurer's office if it's under expectations or over expectations?
Well, our job is going to be to maximize the return on the taxpayer dollar, however many dollars that we have. But certainly, the more dollars that we invest and we earn, or fewer dollars that the taxpayers have to send in. So we do try to maximize whatever income that we have. Certainly the last few years have been tough for everyone involved in state budgeting because it's been a tough downturn. It's been the deepest that I think we've had since the Great Depression, and so it's been tough, but it's also been a tremendous opportunity. You know, we have trouble funding our core services, yes, but times like these sometimes provide the political will that's lacking to really gain efficiencies and do more with less, which we need to continually do. We've made great strides and we have gained efficiencies, but there's more to be had.
Well, speaking of political will, I suspect that took a little political will on Scott's part, who's a Democrat, to call a Republican and urge him to run because of your qualifications. That's true bipartisanship, it sounds like.
Well, I didn't know Scott was a Democrat. No, no, Scott, it did take some courage, and I appreciate his willingness to do so. I mean, really, he was criticized for supporting me, and frankly, I got a little bit of criticism for taking the support. But really, in the state treasurer's office, we don't have red dollars and blue dollars. We have green dollars. It's really not and should not be a partisan position, I don't believe. Our job is to maximize income for the state and safeguard the taxpayer's dollar, and that's not really a partisan issue.
So where do you put the money? Where does the money go?
Well, it goes into a lot of different places. Right now, treasuries are not a great return for us, and traditionally you look at, of course, by statute, it's got to be a pretty safe investment. It has to be a pretty liquid investment because we have to use these dollars. They're not there for a long time. They are going to be directed to the agencies and fund our core services. So we look at safe and liquid investments like treasuries and CDs, and we have agency-backed securities. There are some mortgage-backed securities, and we really just have to look at the investment climate to see what we need to be invested in to gain the return we need.
All right, so it's morning, and you pick up the Wall Street Journal, and there's pages and pages and numbers and financial information. What are you gravitating for, and what are you saying, well, I got to check that to see, because that'll be really good for us if X happens. What are you looking for?
Well, certainly you're looking at actions by the Fed. I mean, you want to see what direction the Fed is going to do and how that's going to
So you want them to
translate
raise interest rates or lower interest rates at the Fed?
Well, we'll manage on whatever they do, but certainly if interest rates are higher, then it's easier for us to be in treasuries. If interest rates are low, then we have to look at alternative investments. So we watch the Fed pretty closely, and certainly we use our Bloomberg a lot. So we're constantly looking to see what's happening in the market and see where we can invest our dollars.
All right, and commodities. Which commodities are you looking at as indicators of Oklahoma's future?
Well, certainly in Oklahoma, energy and ag is what we pay close attention to, because a lot of our economy is tied to those two. If oil and gas are doing well, that means that, one, we're getting gross production taxes because it's coming out of the ground. Two, if it's coming out of the ground, someone has to be doing it. And so they're employed, they have a job, they're getting income, getting a paycheck, and they're going to spend that money. And so that's going to promote the sale of other goods and services, and that's going to give us sales tax revenue. And so certainly oil, primarily natural gas, and commodities such as wheat and the other ag products that we concentrate on in Oklahoma.
Let me ask you a qualification question. You were eminently qualified to assume the position, no question about it, and as was Scott Meacham and probably others. But should there be some kind of a statutory or constitutional minimum qualification level to deal with what you've got to deal with? The average person on the street wouldn't be able to do what you do. But of course you have an MBA and a PhD and years of experience as well. What do you think about some kind of minimum qualification level to keep somebody from getting elected to the state treasurer position that doesn't have the foggiest idea what to do?
Well, it certainly wouldn't be a bad idea. I put my confidence in the Oklahoma voter. They usually get it right. And so I think it is wise, in my opinion, that the state treasurer be an elected office. All the states except for 9 have an elected state treasurer, an elected chief financial officer. And so I do think that is wise. Certainly the voters in Oklahoma have gotten it right, in my opinion, not only in this election cycle, but certainly if you look at the last several treasurers that we've had a good string. We've had a good run, and we have had qualified people in the office. Before that, I think you could say that those minimum requirements might have been a good idea.
Yeah,
but we can remember
I
that.
understand the error. Well, Kent said that you're the 18th state treasurer, which means to me that maybe we haven't always had a state treasurer. What's the history of the office?
Oh, I think, well, to my knowledge, we have.
Okay, so maybe they were in office a long time.
Yeah.
So there was some extended tenure then.
I think in the 40s and 50s and early 60s, there were long tenures.
I see. People just kept getting elected and reelected.
Yeah, I think Leo was there 20 years or more, if that's correct. And
Well,
so he parked in the spot a while.
That solves my issue. Ken Miller is our guest. He's the state treasurer of the state of Oklahoma. We have another segment with Ken on the other side of this break, so stay with us.
The thing that has made the most sense for me is realizing that I am still an educator, and that is what I do at the Chickasaw Nation. I'm Dr. Amanda Cobb-Greetham. I'm a historian, and I'm Chickasaw. The Chickasaw Cultural Center is amazing. It is a very, very special place devoted to the sharing and to the celebration of Chickasaw history and culture. State-of-the-art technology, exhibits that are not like anything I've ever seen. The Spirit Forest is incredible, and you feel as if you have actually just walked into a forest with huge trees all around you. It's timeless, and yet it's sort of also representative of our time depth, to really just sort of reach through time and touch the past. By the end of the exhibits, you really have a sense of Chickasaw cultural and political resurgence and the extent to which we are a healthy, dynamic, and vital tribe today. Chickasaws have always been an inclusive people. This is something for the whole community and for the state of Oklahoma.
In 25 years, world energy demand will grow by 44%, with oil and natural gas largely meeting the need.
The question is, will America's demand be met by American resources?
Oklahoma says yes. We're developing the largest oil and natural gas discoveries America has seen in 40 years.
It's creating jobs and millions in tax revenue for schools, roads, and hospitals.
Oklahoma's oil and natural gas industry, advancing our state, empowering our nation.
When you have something important to communicate, it becomes clear that there's a lot of competition for your audience's attention. So how can your message stand out and actually resonate with your audience? Legal Graphics has the answers. The team at Legal Graphics will work with you to plan, design, and even test your presentation to ensure your message will be heard and remembered. Call Legal Graphics today to schedule an appointment. The readiness is all.
Glad you're with us on The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and we're visiting with Ken Miller. He's the state treasurer for the state of Oklahoma. Ken?
Well, let's talk about the estimates that you use to advise the legislature on what they can do and what they can't do. Mm-hmm. How reliable are those estimates? I mean, and have we had any, with this downturn in 08, did that call into question the system that we use?
Well, historically, we've done a pretty good job with the estimate. It's an educated guess based on a lot of complicated factors, I guess, but we have had a pretty good run on predicting the revenues. I think that our Constitution is incredibly prudent in that it only allows us to appropriate or spend 95% of that estimate. And so I think it's acknowledgement that you're not always going to get the estimated guess, and so you've got to have a little bit of cushion there. 5% of $6-7 billion is a pretty good cushion to have.
Well, let me ask you also about the prudence of what we have in Oklahoma, and I don't know how many other places have it, the rainy day fund.
Right.
I realize it's a little dried up in the moment.
Right.
But talk about the rainy day fund and what you have to deal with.
Okay. Well, as I said, we had a pretty good run on getting our estimates. In 2009 fiscal year, we did miss it by quite a bit, 17.5% when we had the quickly fast-paced recession that set in. Yeah. The estimates were off by quite a bit. Having the rainy day fund allows us to take care of some of those problems. We have had $600 million in the rainy day fund that had built up over time. We used that over 3 different fiscal years. Now, of course, when the downturn came and the estimate was off by 17%, there were a lot of calls to use all that money in that current fiscal year, but that was resisted. And that was spread out over 3 fiscal years to try to manage through this pretty long recession. So right now it's down, I think, $2.03 was what I saw the last time. The legislature does have $100 million of it to use in this session for the next fiscal year. But we're going to start building that back up, and we are preparing to put about a $71 million deposit into the rainy day fund at the close of this fiscal year.
What determines how much is available for deposit into the rainy day fund?
Well, since we can appropriate 95% of the estimate, then we have a 5% cushion. Everything that comes in over 100% of the estimate has to go into the rainy day fund, up to a maximum of 10% of the prior year's certification. Well, it was 10% until last year. I authored a bill last year to take that from 10% to 15%, and so now the law says that we put 15% of the prior year certification into the rainy day fund.
So we'll make a deposit, you hope, this year?
We will, there's no doubt, because we are coming in, our revenues are gaining strength every month, and we are coming in quite a bit over the 100% mark of the estimate, and so we will be making a deposit.
I just hear on the radio and on television and in the newspaper about states that are having an awful lot of trouble. I mean, obviously it's not easy in Oklahoma, but we apparently are not having nearly as much financial trouble as other places.
Right.
Is this rainy day fund something that is widely used in other states, or are we relatively unique?
I believe it is widely used, and we have not tapped ours very much in recent history. Before the voters wisely clamped down on the use of the fund, it was being abused. And I think there was an emergency golf course built somewhere prior to the voters clamping down on the use of the rainy day fund. But since they went in several years ago and put some really tightened up the language on what was an emergency and what was budget stabilization, those kinds of things, it was abused, but we've been pretty prudent with it since. But I think other states have the rainy day funds as well, and I think most do.
One final question on rainy day fund, then I'll leave it alone. But who makes the ultimate final decision on whether it is to be used or not?
Well, the legislature and the governor. They work together, on that.
Okay. One can't do it without the other.
No, I don't believe so. It'd be very, very tough. I think the legislature might can do it without the governor, but they'd have to get a really high bar of passage on that.
Transition between former Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Meacham, and your office. How did that go in retrospect?
Well, it went very smoothly, and it's continuing to do so. Scott was very helpful. Called me the day after the election, wanted to meet that day. I asked him if he'd give me one day off, and he did. And we got to work on the transition way before I was sworn in, so that went very well, and it's continuing to do so.
I read recently that you have formed an advisory committee. Can you tell us about that? Who it is? What function will it perform?
Well, statute allows the state treasurer to name an investment advisory committee to help him and make recommendations on the portfolio, on where we're going to invest and what our allocations will be that would maximize our return. I activated that portion of the statute and named a 5-member advisory committee. I have some tremendous folks on there with a lot of years of experience in economics and investments. I have Dr. James Wilbanks, who heads up our teachers' retirement system. Got to know James. He was a PhD economist from OU. Also, we have Gordon Sellon, who's a PhD from Harvard, and spent his 30-year career with the Federal Reserve and advising the FOMC. So that's pretty good criteria, pretty good contribution that he will make. Got a gentleman from Bank First, that's their Chief Investment Officer, Bob Neville. Also have, let's see, I'm leaving out somebody.
Scott.
Well, I got Scott. I was saving him to the end. But let's see. Well, I'm leaving out one. I'm going to get in trouble. But certainly Scott Meacham is chairing that for us. And I asked Scott if he would come back in. And we're not going to pay him very much. Nothing, actually. But he has agreed to come back in and to advise us on the portfolio. And we're going to meet once a month for the next year.
We hear a lot about the pensions and the fact that there's not enough money to ultimately pay out those pensions. Who makes those predictions? Is that out of your office that those numbers are supplied to whomever is asking?
Well, I do chair the pension commission, but we certainly would have some professional advice with actuaries and also our fund manager that manages our funds. We have several. The one that's in the worst shape, of course, dollar-wise, is Oklahoma Teachers Retirement, about a $10.5 billion unfunded liability there. Of course, our public employees retirement fund is not as bad, but it's still very bad. Then if we look at police and fire, and they're all in bad shape. So while we talked about the good news on the budget side, we do have relatively good amount of things going on with our budget compared to other states. But on the pension side, that's not the case. And we have some real trouble with our pension systems. Any way you slice it, whether you're looking at a percent of gross state product or you're looking at per capita, we're in the top 10 worst states when it comes to unfunded pension liability. It is a problem that we've got to deal with. It's an imminent threat to us and really has reached a crisis level.
All right. Ken Miller is the state treasurer. Thanks so much for coming on The Verdict. Our time has gone quickly here. I hope to have you back on another show.
Thank you, Mick. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ken.
Thanks.
Ken and I'll have a final word when we return.
All right.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information. And for almost 30 years, Oklahoma political, government, and business leaders have turned to the McCarville Report for accurate, reliable, inside information. Visit the McCarville Report online.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. We're wrapping up a show with Ken Miller. Ken is the state treasurer for the state of Oklahoma. A delightful interview and full of information. Guy sure seems well qualified.
Well, indeed. I mean, his academic qualifications and his performance qualifications are just outstanding. It's quite an endorsement for him that the prior state treasurer of a different party encourages him to run because of his experience with his work and his extraordinary qualifications. So I think our treasurer's office remains in good hands.
Yeah, well, having a PhD can't hurt, and being a university professor in that area. Well, we have some ways you can get more information on the state treasurer's office, but you're going to have to find the slash on your typewriter because it's got a slash in there. www.ok.gov/treasure. That's ok.gov/treasure, and you can get more information on Ken Miller and his office, and I assume a lot of other financial information on the state of Oklahoma. We also have a website that I'd like to draw your attention to, and that's our website, theverdict.tv. You can go on there and see a lot of really good pictures of Kent and me, but more importantly, you can go on there and tell us about a show idea that you have for an upcoming episode of The Verdict.
Well, you can have some fun because you can look at the pictures that are on that website, which were taken 10 years ago, and see how they really don't look like us at all now.
Yeah, you won't recognize us a bit, but tell us about a person you'd like to see interviewed or a topic you'd like to see.
Or
us
what was your
discuss.
favorite show over 10 years?
Yeah, boy. If they have all of them videotaped, so they would just take them a while.
Mine
to go
was
through
this
them.
one. Mine was this
It's the only one you can remember.
That's right.
Ken Miller was today's guest. Kent and I'll be back next week with another show, and we'll see you then.
The preceding program was produced exclusively for the Cox Channel.